Whispers in the marble halls. Some people entered Harvard through the front gates, others through hidden doors lined with old money and legacy letters. But for those like Layla Monroe, there was only one entrance: the silent service corridors, a battered key card, a mop in one hand, and a dream so fragile she dared not even whisper it aloud. Layla tightened her faded navy jacket as she stepped into the echoing marble hallway of Jefferson Hall, Harvard's distinguished science building. The clock above the grand staircase blinked 1:42 a.m. Her shift had started an hour ago, like every night. While the rest of the world slept, Layla moved through the temples of brilliance. She dusted desks smudged with chalky equations, wiped fingerprints from doors bearing names like Dr. Isaac Reynard and Dr. Sonia Liu, and emptied trash bins brimming with cold coffee cups and scribbled napkins, ideas that might someday change the world. The students never noticed her. She noticed them: their hurried steps, their arguments over theories, their groggy laughter at 2 a.m. They lived in a world that once almost belonged to her, a world she still tiptoed beside but could never fully enter. Tonight, like many before it, Layla worked methodically between rooms. But when she pushed open the heavy door to Lecture Hall 324, she stopped short. The room was silent except for the soft hum of a forgotten desk lamp. And on the blackboard normally wiped clean by professors before leaving was a dense tapestry of chalk, glowing faintly. Formulas spiraled outward in tight, intricate patterns. Layla froze, her mop slipping from her fingers onto the floor. She approached, drawn like a moth to a flame. The equation was beautiful. A matrix optimization problem embedded within nonlinear constraints, sophisticated and elegant. She had seen glimpses of similar problems once, years ago, watching MIT lectures online in the flickering public library computers before her internet was cut off for good. Hands trembling, heart pounding not with fear, but with something older hunger, Layla picked up a stick of chalk. Reverently, she approached the board. She didn't erase. She added small, careful corrections, weaving her thoughts in neat, delicate script alongside the original work. For her, this wasn't vandalism. This was communion. This was music. Meanwhile, in a deserted parking lot, Professor Isaac Reynard cursed softly under his breath, slamming the trunk of his sedan. He had forgotten the most important thing: his notes for the Cambridge Symposium carelessly left behind in room 324. Months of work. He jogged back to the building, annoyance tightening his steps. The halls were empty. No one should be there at this hour. But as he neared room 324, he saw a light under the door and froze. Silently, he pushed the door open. There, in janitor's uniform and worn sneakers, stood a young woman at the board, chalk in hand, utterly absorbed. It wasn't her presence that stunned him. It was what she was doing. She was correcting the final constraint of his theorem. The piece he himself hadn't solved yet. And her correction, it worked. She sensed him then. Dropping the chalk, she spun around, wide-eyed. "I'm sorry," she gasped, backing away. "I wasn't trying to. I didn't mean." "What exactly were you doing?" Reynard's voice was low, unreadable. "I was just trying to understand," she whispered. "It's a nonlinear optimization nested within a secondary constraint, right? I wasn't going to touch anything, I swear." He stepped closer, scrutinizing the board, the fluidity of her notes, the intuition behind her rearrangement. He clenched his jaw. "That's not a beginner's mistake," he said. "Who taught you?" Layla swallowed. "No one," she said. "I used to study on my own. Free online courses. But I had to drop out. Senior year. My mom got sick." The confession hung between them, heavier than the chalk dust swirling in the air. Reynard didn't say anything for a long time. Then, to Layla's shock, he crossed the room, picked up the chalk she had dropped, and began writing beneath her notes. "You miscalculated the friction coefficient," he said after a moment, his voice softer now. "Only because you didn't know I introduced an additional constraint yesterday." Her heart thudded against her ribs. "So, I was close. Closer than most of my graduate students," he murmured. Layla blinked, unable to believe what she was hearing. "I just wanted to see," she whispered, "if I still had it. Math was Always my language. He nodded, studying her with an intensity that made her look away. Tomorrow, he said, 7 p.m., my office. Don't wear that uniform. Bring your brain. Then he left without another word. And for the first time in 7 years, Layla Monroe felt less like a ghost haunting the corridors of genius and more like she might belong among them. Layla stood frozen in the silent lecture hall for a long time after Professor Reynard left. The only sounds the soft hum of the overhead lights and the faint crackle of chalk dust settling. Her fingers still tingled from the feel of the chalk, her mind racing faster than it had in years. She picked up her mop slowly, her legs trembling beneath her. As she closed the door to room 324 behind her, she didn't feel the cold seeping through the marble halls. She felt something warmer, burning quietly in her chest. Possibility. The next evening, at precisely 6:58 p.m., Layla stood outside Professor Reynard's office, room 407, Pierce Hall. Her palms were clammy, her stomach twisted into knots. She had changed out of her work uniform and into the only decent outfit she owned, a navy blouse and black pants she had bought years ago for job interviews that never called her back. Her hair was neatly tied, her sneakers scrubbed clean, though still scuffed beyond hope. Summoning her courage, she knocked. "Come in," came Reynard's voice. The office was surprisingly modest for a tenure Harvard professor. Bookshelves groaned under the weight of academic journals. A battered chalkboard took up an entire wall, covered with swirling equations. A coffee mug reading math, the only universal language, sat next to a pile of student papers. Reynard looked up from file. His silver-rimmed glasses perched low on his nose. "You're early," he said, noting the clock. "1 minute early," Layla said softly. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." She obeyed, perching on the edge of the seat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "You think this is a disciplinary meeting," Reynard said. She nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "It is," he said, "but not in the way you think." Layla's heart plummeted. "You overstepped," he continued. "You accessed academic work without permission." Her mouth opened to apologize, but he raised a hand, silencing her. "But," he said, "you also demonstrated something far rarer, genuine mathematical intuition. Not memorization, not guesswork. Intuition, the kind you can't teach." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "So the real question is, why are you cleaning floors instead of solving problems?" Layla swallowed hard. "I dropped out," she said. "Senior year of high school. My mom, staged for breast cancer. I had to work. I thought, maybe I could go back someday. But time got away from me." Reynard listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. "I still study," she added hurriedly. "Library books. Free courses online. Whatever I can find." "You didn't find that equation in a free course," he said bluntly. "That was yours." Layla blinked, stunned. He pulled a slim file from his desk drawer and slid it across to her. Inside, a single page, a letter of provisional acceptance. "Harvard Extension School," he said. "Night program. If you pass the placement exam next month, you're in. Full scholarship. Sponsored by an anonymous donor." Layla's hands shook as she held the paper. "Why?" she whispered. Reynard's face softened for the first time. "Because," he said, "if we don't fight for minds like yours, this place rots from the inside out." Tears stung Layla's eyes, but she blinked them away fiercely. "You'll still work for now," he added. "But study comes first." "Understood." She nodded. As she stood to leave, she paused at the door. "Professor," she said, her voice trembling, "that problem on the board. Did I really come close?" Reynard smiled faintly. "Closer than I wanted to admit," he said. And for the first time since her mother died, Layla Monroe believed her life wasn't over. It hadn't even started yet. The following nights blurred into a relentless rhythm. Work, study, work, study. Layla cleaned from 6 p.m. to midnight, then found an empty classroom where she studied until the first light of dawn kissed the old brick towers. At first, the security guards raised their eyebrows. A janitor poring over differential topology textbooks at 2 a.m. wasn't something they were used to seeing, but soon they stopped asking questions. Layla lived on peanut butter crackers, coffee, and sheer stubbornness. Some nights, the exhaustion nearly crushed her. Theorems blurred into nonsense. Equations twisted out of reach. Doubt whispered viciously in her ear. You're not one of them. You never will be. But then, like clockwork, a text would buzz on her battered phone. Hard problems aren't solved overnight. Strong minds don't quit. Professor R. She would close her eyes, take a deep breath, and start again. The placement exam loomed closer. Harvard didn't make it easy. Only 10 applicants were selected per term. Of those, 2 or 3 passed. Layla was determined to be one of them. On the night before the exam, she found a worn envelope tucked in her locker. It was her mother's handwriting. My brightest girl, the letter began. The world may not always see your light. Shine anyway. Layla cried. Alone in the dim, cleaning closet, the letter pressed her heart. She walked into the exam the next morning with that letter tucked inside her worn canvas bag, next to her pencils and notebook. The test was brutal, a marathon of nested matrices, nonlinear constraints, abstract proofs. Some questions weren't just about getting the right answer, they were about explaining why the problem even mattered. Layla's hands moved steadily, her heart pounding. Every sleepless night, every whispered equation under flickering fluorescent lights, every piece of herself she had clawed back from despair, it all led to this moment. When she finished, she stood up, shaky but steady. As she handed in her paper, she heard a professor mutter to Reynard, "The janitor girl? Really, Isaac? Even if she's decent, what does it say about our standards?" Layla heard it, but she also heard Reynard's calm reply. "It says we finally remembered what potential looks like." 3 days later, a plain white envelope slid under her apartment door. Layla stared at it, breathless. Inside, "Congratulations, MS. Monroe. You have been accepted into the Harvard Extension Program for Mathematics, with full tuition awarded." Below that, a handwritten note from Reynard. "You didn't just pass. You outscored every applicant. Welcome to the other side of the chalkboard." Layla sank to the floor, laughing and crying all at once. For the first time, it wasn't just about surviving. It was about belonging.